So, I had a significant health issue early in my 20s. I was in graduate school at the time, and it resolved beautifully, and I have not, just never looked back. But I had been raised lukewarm Christian, and after arguing with evangelical Christians through 4 years of college, I had really I'd been sort of damaged with regard to my Christian upbringing, and so when I had this health issue, I didn't have any kind of philosophical framework to go to, and yet I felt very deeply that I needed something. And I happened to be in a bookstore, and it was the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying specifically, and that just sort of jumped off the shelf, and I said, wow, this is wonderful. Now if you look in there, there's some stuff that isn't really consistent with science, but it felt more consistent. Mm-hmm. It felt more consistent.
Sure.
And that planted a seed, and then years later, I wanted to visit that with more intensity, and of course, by then I had a PhD in neuroscience and so on. And so when this opportunity opened up, and that's really the way I experienced it, it was just a random series of events, and I had suddenly the opportunity to go to Princeton and work with Mathieu Ricard and to some extent the Dalai Lama and so on these issues of meditation. There was this sense that I was in such a rush to go do that because it sounded so cool that I never actually figured out what the prize was going to be. Like in a truly honest intellectual accounting, I was never quite able to figure that out, And it's, for me, and I think you hit on this exactly, what it did is it really resonated with what little sort of spirituality I have. Mm-hmm. Like, it was the particular thing that I needed to sort of start, as you say, dropping things. Mm-hmm. There was a kind of comfort that it's not a pure form of Buddhism by any stretch of the imagination, but for sort of neophyte contemplative practitioners like myself, it was a way to get started, a way to sort of begin on the path. And so, sort of what I've been left with are these just remarkable personal encounters that I've had, with people such as yourself that have dedicated a very substantial portion of a life to pursuing this goal, and just that feeling, that it comes from right here, that there's kind of an opening that happens, that there's an element of the human potential that as a hard driving, relatively anxious, fairly focused scientist, on my own, I wasn't able to do it. So in some sense, for me, it's almost like a Buddhist practice doing the science of this.
Sure, it is. And you said something about, what you've been doing isn't a particularly traditional Buddhist way of doing, but, what is that anyway? I mean, what is Buddhist? It's that sense that there is something within that is yearning to be fulfilled by a truth that we know is somehow here. So we may go in circuitous pathways to find it. But all the while we're going in those circuitous pathways, it's never absent. So everything you do is actually an awakening.
That's good news.
It is. It is. See, the good news of Buddhism is we're doing it.